morning.
Yes, glad to meet you.
All right. So thank you everyone for being here. It's nice to actually meet in person versus email. Get a chance to put names with faces. So I'm so excited to talk to you all today. Again, I'm going to remind everybody as we go, please send in your questions. I'll keep an eye on the queue. Happy to pass through questions. We're here today really to talk about just the evolved customer offerings and last mile, home delivery, curbside, in-store pickup. It's just been a whirlwind of change in the last 18 months. So let's just start off with the big question, which is what are the big challenges? What are the pain points? And I'll just let you guys jump in and start sharing. Well, actually, first let's start with introductions. Please introduce yourself. Tell us a little about your company and what you do.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. Good morning, my name is John Gord. I'm responsible for last mile, final mile with CVS Health.
Good morning. I'm Nate Wells, Global Transportation Lead for StockX. I'm excited to be here. So responsible for overall global transportation for all of our buyers and sellers on our StockX platform, which is one of the newest platforms for buyers and sellers trading all things cool, special kicks, handbags, collectibles, trading cards, you name it, we got it. So good to be here.
Hi, I'm Penny Register Shaw. I apologize to everyone that I haven't met yet because of my travel delays. When I was booked for Home Delivery World, I was Vice President of Last Mile Urban Customer Experience for Walmart, but I've recently transitioned to a new company called the Front Door Collective, which specializes in micro last mile delivery experiences for the rest of this year, and next year, sky's the limit.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Dineshdixit. I'm the Vice President for Account Management at LogiNext and the leader of the US offices. We are an end-to-end transportation automation platform, which is not just for last mile delivery, but all across from the first mile, middle mile, and last mile. And excited to be here. I'm looking forward to a good discussion with all of you.
Wonderful. All right, so let's just dive right in, and let's talk about the state of things today. Where are the challenges that you see in your business, and what brought us to this point?
Well, I'll start. I think that just from last mile, final mile perspective, it's capacity. There's so much volume out there. Obviously, the COVID pandemic really forced people to buy more online, so there's a lot more volume going certainly B2C than there was in the past. And you think about it, we have really three major carriers in the U.S., right? UPS, FedEx, and USPS that go across the country, and they're at capacity, right? So, I look at right now the importance for folks certainly in the business that we're in is that you need to diversify. You need to certainly look at having other carriers occur just in case those three major carriers cannot handle the capacity. But then you think about the capacity and everything that we went through with the Covid-19 forced a lot of people again to buy online and shop online when they used to go to the store. And now we're dealing with what I call staffing pandemic, right? So now we're bidding to get people to work. So like everyone, staffing is a challenge for us across the country.
And in terms of the whole staffing, right, from our perspective, especially as a technology company, the primary thing that we're trying to do is give all of our customers that platform, which allows, like John and I were talking, like a carrier integration platform, which allows you to seamlessly bring folks on board, and it doesn't have to be third-party carriers and even independent contractors, right? Because that's where a lot of the gig economy workforce is there to be tapped into. And that is where we are seeing that the definite challenges of lack of people and driver shortages can only be solved by using these kind of interesting technology backbones, which helps you to bring more people on board.
There are two very large issues that I also think overlay everything that John and Dixit said, which is the safety concerns and the infrastructure in this country. I don't, even though e-commerce really started over 20 years ago, I don't think there were enough people thinking on 10 and 20-year time frames about what the roadways needed to look like, what the in delivery receptacles needed to look like if you're not the post office and able to put something in a mailbox. And then the safety of having all of these vehicles and e-bikes and people on the road rushing to get people goods. So it would, John and I actually have something in common in that we both lived in Rhode Island for a long time, and probably 40 years ago, Rhode Island had something called the Greenhouse Compact, where they started to think about these things, but it was unfortunately not funded. And I would just encourage people, even though this is a very tactical business, to think of that, those 5-year, 10-year chunks on safety and the infrastructure that will support home deliveries.
And Nate, let's hear about your perspective.
Be it safety, because that's a great point. Systems, resources, from a platform like ours that started in just 5-6 years ago. And you know, our customers really pivoted, our buyers and sellers during this pandemic. I mean, they really wanted their stuff, and we had to really pivot really quickly to give them alternative modes of transportation, because we got it around the capacity thing. We felt the pain as we were growing 40, 50, 60, 80% in a year over year, right? We had to give our buyers and sellers more options. So we want to do it in a safe way. We want to be smart. We want to give them options where you can pick up, you can do bulk delivery. We want to do traditional parcel. Our customers and our buyers said, give us more options. I can come to you. And then when I come to you, give me more options in your drop-off. Give me retail options. I mean, they really, during this pandemic, if we learned anything, be dynamic, be diversified in your selections of how you execute. So this is one of the reasons why these types of conventions are really good, because we're looking at the next technology, because we're not just in North America. Right? When you think about global, when you think about high-dense areas, a lot of our buyers and our sellers are selling what we consider to be current culture, right? So they're really in dense inner cities, and they want their stuff not now, but right now. Right? So that's one of our challenges as we continue to grow, and we've seen some of the, massive results through a pandemic.
Right.
But imagine once we come out on the other side, we really want to be smarter, wiser, and have better selections for our platform users.
And for StockX, Nate, just one of the other layers of complexity to me seems just to be the authentication of the validity of the goods, because you're matching buyers and sellers, aren't you?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is interesting. One of the things I'll tell you about our secret sauce is, if you want to be the platform of current culture, authentication and being true to what you're selling is significantly important. So if somebody says, hey, I want to buy some Yeezy Red Octobers for $13,000 to $17,000, right? You need to make sure, number one, it's real. Number two, we already know it's awesome, right? So that is one of our secret sauce, because a lot of platforms may do some type of trading, but we really touch, validate, and authenticate through our proprietary system every product that we sell. So because of that, imagine when somebody's selling a Yeezy Red October for $17,000, they want to know where it's at. They want to know where it's at in the process. I mean, they would love it if there was a camera attached to their shoe throughout the entire supply chain until they showed up at the seller. So that is our secret sauce from an authentication perspective, but also our sellers and buyers are entrepreneurs, so they're passionate. So technology is key. So we're going to be looking at all types of opportunities to put technology, authentication, and buyers and sellers products together over the coming months and years.
Can I ask you 2 questions? Are they willing to pay for those different experiences, and are you looking at blockchain for Provence?
So that's an excellent call out. I mean, we're looking at all types of innovation and technology, not only blockchain for authentication and other things, but I'll tell you this, whenever you have the original Air Jordans, or the original ones, if you look at our platform, they're not cheap. So people who are buying an experience, they're not buying these to wear super cool. they're buying them to not only collect, potentially trade in the future, and to see how that value is going. So they're willing to insure and pay for our secret sauce to ensure that at very minimum, if I spend $1,000 on something, 800, if I spend $80 on something, I want to make sure it's real, I want to make sure it's right, and I want to get it quickly. So yeah, they're willing to pay, and we want to be mindful of how you can make that unit economics of value for them, and do it within our secret sauce.
Nate did bring up a good point about options, and I think that's important, especially in the business that we're in, is you have to have options for customers out there, whether it's same-day delivery, on demand, next day, 2-day, 3-day, BOPUS, right? You have to have options, because if you don't, they're going to shop elsewhere. So that's important, especially, again, when you think about capacity, right? And how you're going to drive traffic to the stores.
Yeah, and the different types of services, right? Like the willingness to pay definitely is one of the important factors. Like that's where some people might spend, like on a $70,000 shoes, I'm sure they'll be ready to spend another $1,000 just to make sure that they get right quality of service. And what we're seeing in the industry is especially like enabling these different types of business models, right? Like curbside pickups that started with the whole advent of the COVID virus. And also different things like, hey, we want the 1-hour delivery, 2-hour delivery, like the Instacarts of the world that started doing. And now GoPuff and the rest of the folks are going even more aggressive with like 15-minute delivery. Enabling all of those, right? Like especially for the big brands like the CVS's, Walmart, Targets to compete with all of these kind of deliveries, that's going to be extremely important, right? It doesn't come just from a technology perspective, but also the infrastructure where you have the right kind of people and the technologies and processes for doing curbside delivery. You have the right pick process, you have the right kind of inventory management systems in the store to truly know what you can and cannot deliver within that time frame. I think it's going to be extremely important.
It sounds like one of the big things is just no business can work in silos anymore. I mean, historically, you could have a business that was very siloed, and they were responsible for their own P&L, or they were doing, their own thing. But it seems like that playing field is just leveled, and that organizations need to be more integrated than ever before, from a technology, from a sourcing, from every kind of perspective. How has the pandemic changed your businesses in terms of just how you operate, and what do you think is going to stick going forward versus what's just been transitory?
Let me take a stab at that one. So with the benefit of being a little bit younger of a company, right? Like if you've only been around 5 or 6 years, you're cloud native mostly. You don't have to worry about mainframes and other things of that nature. So one of the things I'll tell you with us is being able to be very agile and to pilot new opportunities, to listen to our buyers and sellers, and to try. If it doesn't work, fail fast and move on. So that's one of the things as we look across our business, look at promotions and opportunities. I continue to say that our buyers and sellers are the most entrepreneurial 16 and 17-year-olds out there selling things, if not Balenciaga bags or shoes. We want to give them products and systems that really work. The benefit to not having so much technical debt, we're able to try stuff. And as we continue to work with new companies, we work with companies and we can plug into our systems relatively easy because we are cloud native. We do have a lot of opportunity and we're very innovative. So I would say that being able to try, pilot, fail fast and move on has been huge for us.
Yeah, and I agree with that. You have to be agile, you have to be nimble, right? You have to try something. Don't sit back and wait for something to happen, because if you do, you're going to be left behind. So it's important to try to, again, fail fast. Try it. If it doesn't work, go on to something else. I mean, we've tried many things when I think about the last mile, final mile delivery. We're shipping from 9,800 of our CVS stores across the country. We've tried many things to, how do we get there faster? How do we get there cheaper? So it's all about trying something. Don't sit down and wait. Be nimble and be agile.
And understanding those personas of the millennial and the Gen Z shopper and whatever comes next, really paying attention to their voices, and because they are very, very opinionated and knowledgeable shoppers, and to disregard it is to fail faster and permanently, I think.
Yeah, and from our side, business has been good because from the whole surge in volumes that all of us saw, right? Like in terms of carriers and even shippers, the surge in volumes required different kinds of technologies, right? To Nate's point, like being a cloud-hosted, a SaaS product like ours, it's easy to plug and play into any ecosystem, even if it's mainframes, if you may, right? Trying to get that kind of technology, that's where we saw a lot of positive motion in terms of revenue growth and all that good stuff, right? That was primarily because these kind of things are what, to Penny's point, our people are expecting, right? Like my wife and rest of the folks have literally no time and in general lazy, I would say, humans. Who just want things delivered, right?
Is this being recorded?
He's in trouble.
And it is so funny, right? So my mom, she's back in India still. During the pandemic, like she ordered her first online delivery on Amazon at home, and she was super excited. Like when we actually walked her through that, hey, go to this site and you can click it and you can get stuff delivered. Don't venture out, because India especially got hit pretty hard with the pandemic. When she did that, her mind was blown. And then every other day, there would be a new picture like, hey, look what I ordered online, right? So she's like a first-time consumer at 68 years old. And those kind of folks are now just getting hooked on to this convenience. And that is what they're going to expect, right? They're going to expect that, hey, everything comes to them. And that is where the surge in volume, I think, is just here to stay.
John, we actually have a question from the audience for you. And the question is, since home delivery is making its way into the world of medicine, how challenging is it to ship something like prescriptions to someone's door?
It's very challenging. Obviously, we got to make sure we're following the proper procedures, so on and so forth. And the carrier we're using for prescription deliveries is USPS. So, obviously, they leave it in a secure location, but obviously it's important that we deliver it right, it gets delivered at the right address, so on and so forth. So the team I have monitors that daily. Got an excellent team, and they certainly stay close to all those type of delays.
It seems like, especially in prescriptions and medicine, there's been another kind of step forward as a result of the pandemic, of people becoming more used to receiving goods, like you were talking about, at their home. And that includes things that they traditionally maybe weren't so comfortable with, like prescription medicine or online grocery with getting your fresh produce delivered to you. It seems that it's sort of forced some evolution in terms of consumer acceptance of it. How permanent do you think that is? Do you think people are going to kind of recede a little bit once the pandemic fades, or do you think that some of that's here to stay?
Well, I think, I look at it like this. There's people out there that didn't shop online before, right? The pandemic forced them to shop online. And I think about prescription delivery, the same thing. They're used to going to the store because we're almost on every corner, so you just go to the store. Now with that convenience of staying home and getting that delivered, they like it. Right, so we've seen a dip in some of our delivery volume, but for the most part, I think that it's convenient. They don't have to get in their car, they don't have to go to the store to pick it up. So it'll be interesting, obviously, as we continue forward with what we're going through right now. But from what I've seen, our customers love the convenience of being able to stay at home and getting their prescription delivered.
Right, and we have another question that's come in. So we'll throw this out to everyone, whoever wants to answer. With so many options like BOPIS, lockers, ship to store, or meeting your buyers, how do you determine where more effort should be made? Like, where are you focusing your efforts? And when do you pull the plug on things that don't work? I think some of you have mentioned just being a willingness to try, but when do you say that's enough and move on to something else?
I'm a real big believer on knowing what my success metrics are going into a project and then following them through. I think I have seen good ideas abandoned too quickly because either you've changed the way you define success midstream, or you're not staying true to that, or you pull the plug too quickly. So there's a science and an art, and finding that perfect point. But I'm probably err on the side of, okay, if you think right now is the time to abandon it, give it another month and see what happens to the adoption rate. and maybe scale down a little bit, but not completely abandon the project, because it may take hold. And I've been working on locker delivery for 25 years and seen it come, go, and I would like to see it stay.
You know, it's interesting. By the way, I love locker delivery. Right? Number one, you just have to ask, what's the voice of the customer? So we tend to go out and just ask, because what I'll tell you may not be great here in the Northeast. When I ask our buyers and sellers in Hong Kong, they feel a different way.
Yeah.
Australia, Melbourne, they feel a different way. Seoul, Korea. I mean, I can go on and on. So basically having that finger on the pulse of your customer, that's huge, because I think that it may not be a one size fits all. It's never a one size fits all. In my experience, be it working as a vice president at FedEx, having experience with innovative technology, and then going over to XPO and being a senior vice president of global transformation, like I've seen a lot of things try, but then having the luxury of coming to StockX and then listening to so many of our passionate buyers and sellers around the world say, hey, I want it all, and I want it all right now, and I want it all at my doorstep. So what we try to do is, number one, listen. Number two, try it. Number three, measure it from a KPI perspective, because I think that's your point as well. How do you know if you're winning or losing, ahead or behind? And then if you're losing, then just stop. Like, be honest. We're in the for-profit business. We want to drive results, and if it's not working for our customers, our buyers and sellers, we pivot. But continue to try. Never lose that passion for innovation. Never lose it. When UPS was up earlier, I mean, I was like, oh man, drones in Africa? Are you kidding? Like, I want drones in like Detroit. Like, I love it. I mean, just continue to push the envelope, and I challenge all of us to continue to push, because, you know, we got Gen Zs on our platform, and they're asking stuff, you know, I hadn't even thought of, but we're going to continue to try to listen.
Yep, no, I couldn't agree more, Nate, because I think the voice of the customer is what's driving a lot of the innovation, right? Because people are expecting new things, because there's a huge population that's grown up in the whole technology or internet era. They're used to things like, why would I actually do X, right? Go into the store and actually take it, lug it around and come back and bring it back home. And why can't I see where my package is, like where my Uber is or where my Instacart delivery person is? They're just expecting those things. And that population, as they grow up, they are going to be the biggest consumers going forward, right? And that is where, in terms of what Penny said, like not losing out on certain things too quickly or just shutting those projects down is going to be important. And then also focusing on what is your end consumer going to need, because no matter whether it's a shipper or a carrier, everyone is in the service of the end consumers, right? They are literally paying all of our bills over here in some way, shape or form. And that is where making sure they have what they need, listening to them, collecting their customer satisfaction scores, feedbacks, focus groups, and all of that is going to really shape what is it that you spend the money on.
So that's a great point, but it also makes me wonder about how far do you go down that consumer path? Because you know, I've been the consumer where I can see the dot of my food delivery, and I get annoyed because they're completing another delivery near me, and every second that goes by, I'm like, well, my food's getting colder, right? So where is the limit to that transparency and meeting the consumer demand and the interest in fast and now versus the practicality of the customer experience, and riding that line between frustration and elation?
I think that's a great question, because you have the gift that you've given to your customers is more free time, and then if you monopolize all their free time tracking a package, you really haven't done anything for them at the end of the day. So I do think, you know, coming out with 8 delivery events and then seeing if people actually look at that 7th one and then dialing back a bit and then dialing up until you hit the right place to stick for a while, and then the world changes again. And as Nate said, I think it's really important to look at what's happening in Seoul, Korea, in Munich, and see what other types of consumers are asking for today, so that you can get ahead of what might be coming in the U.S. where it just is so important to get that diversity of views about what is right, and then never think that you found the right answer and I can sit back for the next 10 years and just ride it until the end. You always have to be scanning the horizon.
And visibility, like to your point, without the underlying operational optimization
Yes.
is going to go nowhere, right? And that is going to lead to frustration where, why is this person taking a completely opposite direction to reach me, right? So that is where, like from our perspective, we are attacking it in two ways. On the optimization side, so we work with a lot of food delivery companies like Pizza Hut, McDonald's, Burger King, and so on and so forth. For them, we track both of those things, right? How quickly can we find a driver and assign it to the driver, similar to the Uber Eats, Grubhub kind of a model, and make sure that the driver is most optimally placed to deliver the food within 20 minutes, 30 minutes. And those are the kind of operational metrics that we track to see, do we need to bump up the number of drivers in a certain location, or are the number of drivers good enough, right? And then when you layer that on top of the visibility, it just helps. Like even recently, there was a Papa John's delivery that I was gonna get. The person was actually in a different place altogether. I had no idea. I got a call because I couldn't track the person in the map view. I got a call that, hey, I'm here. I'm like, no, you're not. I like, there is a concierge. And he was like, he was actually on a different address altogether. And if I had that visibility, I could have directed him directly on the app, because that's what I want to ideally do, because that will automatically make my delivery experience much better. Right?
You know, if you think about it, there's so much pressure on delivery because, as Denise said, the visibility is there. I mean, everyone's tracking, they see exactly where the vehicle is. You know, why did he turn right? He should have been turning left. I'm down here, I'm flagging him. So it's important to stay on top of your game because of that, right? Because, you know, if you don't have that service in line, then you're gonna have a dissatisfied customer. And they have choices at the end of the day to go elsewhere. So it's important for you to stay on top of your game.
And I will say one of them, it's about peace of mind, but one of the things that destroys my peace of mind quickest is when I get a notification that your package has arrived. And I go outside and there's nothing. And I look all around the house and there's nothing. And 3 hours later, my package actually arrives. That may be my most frustrating experience, although I'm totally very grateful for everyone who comes to my door. That is disconcerting to me.
I can relate, because I ordered a new laptop and that happened to me with the laptop. And when you're talking about a higher value item, there's nothing more stressful than being like, okay.
Yes, is it at my neighbor's? Has it been
And actually,
pirated
it just got flagged as delivered, but as you said, it showed up a few hours later. The truck pulled up, and there it was. So I can relate. We have a question here. Maybe John, you can start us off with this. You know, how common are failed deliveries in the e-commerce space, where you try to get it to somebody and it just doesn't work, and how do you combat that?
Well, I mean, you know, obviously we always strive for perfection, right? There's going to be exceptions, and, you know, obviously, I mean, we hold our carrier and courier partners to the highest degree when it comes to service, but we understand there's going to be exceptions. It's all about that visibility, right? So if you do have a missed delivery, you know, it's important to notify the customer, let them know. And then certainly follow up with the carrier and the courier. But like I said, there's so much pressure right now on delivery just because of that. Everyone's looking for that package or order to be delivered. Was it left at my front door? Was it left at my side door? Where was it left? So on and so forth. So the important part of it is really, in my mind, is really getting back to that customer if you have a failed delivery. And then obviously following up with the carrier and courier to make sure you're holding them accountable to the failure.
I'm going to follow up because another question came in while you were talking. With peak season is on its way. It seems that, well, last year had its own challenges, but this year seems that we will have challenges again. And it is slightly different. We've got labor issues, we've got supply chain related issues, capacity issues. So can you just talk about how you're approaching carrier discussions and doing your planning so that you can maintain customer service throughout the holiday period this year?
One of the things that I think is important with the carriers and couriers that we use is that you have that relationship with them. I never treat our carrier or courier vendors as a vendor. I always look at them as a partner. They're an extension of us, right? So if you have that relationship with them, you're going to build that partnership. And there's always going to be give and take. But as I said at the beginning, you really need to look at diversifying your network, right? Because again, these major carriers are at capacity. There's so much volume out there. Obviously the things that we're doing with Bob, as I explained, we set up, well over 6,000 access points in our stores. So we've got options for our customers. If they're not getting it delivered at their house, deliver it to an access point, pick it up in our store, we're driving foot traffic to our store. So it's about all options. Don't have everything in one basket because, again, I agree with you. I think that this year, this November, December is going to be a challenging year with everything that's going on. And on top of it, as I said, the staffing pandemic that we're in, right? It's just, tough to find people to work together.
What about any of the rest of you? What are you thinking about the holiday season? Are you making any special plans, Nate, for example?
Absolutely. so peak is always important, right? When people are buying gifts on our platform, so we see our business grow significant from a peak perspective. So for us, I think we call that diversification of not only your carrier partners, but carrier base is critical. Like we've grown our carrier base globally 3x from last peak season to this peak season. Because it's so important because as business grows, you're only as good as the service you can provide to your partners. So diversification is key, growing capacity is key, growing capacity over 150% to service our buyers and sellers is something that's near and dear to my heart, and that's what we're measuring. And you know what? Will there be opportunity and issues? Absolutely. Right. No peak season goes off like to perfection. So we continually have to run the play, review, determine if we're ahead or behind, winning or losing, continue to execute, and just monitor and do lessons learned for next year. So I'm excited about this peak season. I mean, I've lived through peaks, as a partner on the other side, right? Now coming to an organization to really drive it for our customers. I'm excited to see, but growth and diversification is key.
The key to that too is that you have to plan, right? And we start our planning period, to be honest with you, in January. So as soon as the holiday season's done, we're starting to plan in January, starting to, what went right, what went wrong. So it's important to have a good plan.
Okay. And Penny, can you just talk very quickly about your new venture and
Yes.
holiday and what that means for you?
Yeah, so I shifted from being a shipper last year to being a brand new carrier this year. And on the carrier side, we try to break the system almost every day right now so that when peak comes, we're ready. We've anticipated. We've had a war game about what went wrong, and we've addressed it. It's very important to plan ahead and then be flexible and work with our business partners. And I love the partnership and the relationship building in this industry to know where extra effort is needed or not.
All right. And can you talk to us a little bit about your partnerships and how you're helping your partners prepare just through innovation, whether it's for the peak holiday season or just for scaling your business?
Sure. So we actually work with both shippers and carriers, right? So we have customers who are shippers who want to manage a pool of different carriers that they have across the entirety of the US. And we also work with carriers who are serving multiple shippers. So from our perspective, the innovation that we are bringing is primarily around how can you pack each truck to the fullest of capacity, route it in the most optimal way so that the truck is ready and available for doing the next loads, right? So we have customers who are actually running multiple loads where the first person goes out in the morning, does a shift from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. and then they have a changeover and the same trucks are being used for additional trips. And all of that basically works on the whole supply and demand, right? So from our routing perspective, the majority of the innovation that we've done is to give our shippers and carriers the flexibility to see what works best for your business model. So the algorithm will give you the right results based on the configurations that you can set, based on your volumes, based on the fleet capacity, based on the driver shift times, hours of service regulations. And that is how we are approaching that problem to help with the whole peak, because we've been through those fires from the previous years, and that is where all of our attention the past year and this year has been geared towards building those capabilities so that the shippers and carriers can maximize everything from the fleet you have, right?
All right, and we're running out of time here already, but I just want to touch on one last topic before we wrap up very, very quickly. Some closing thoughts. We've had a couple of questions come in about sustainability. And so if we could just get, a 30-second view from each of you on sustainability and how it's impacting your business and what your thoughts are, whether it's electronic vehicles or whether it's packaging. John, can you just start us off?
From a sustainability perspective with packaging, I mean, we're always looking at alternative packaging, right? I mean, we have a team that look at that almost every day. But it's, again, staying up with the environment, obviously, and the packaging. I mean, when I look at our pharmacy, a lot of our packaging is a poly bag, right, that we ship out. So, I mean, that's something that keeps us up late at night. How do we stay ahead of that sustainability?
Okay.
And for us, sustainability is near and dear to not only our hearts, but our customers and our buyers and sellers. I mean, they expect us to be a sustainable organization, so we're really working on what does that platform look like by working with carriers who have the same cultural ethos as our customers and buyers and sellers. And they're coming to us like, hey, here's what we're doing with electrical vehicles, here's what we're doing with clean energy, here's what we're doing, and we're like, hey, number one, sign us up, right? How can we be advocates? Because us as buyers of transportation services, we need to be advocates for sustainability, because then it's an economically viable option for everybody and not only the planet. So, right? So this is one of the things that we're near and dear to our hearts, and that we're rolling out our roadmap and having conversations with each and every last one of those partners. We grew threefold. Hey, what's your sustainability plan, number one, and how can we be part of it?
Well, one of the things that attracted me to the Front Door Collective was a promise, a pledge to be 100% electric vehicles by beginning of 2024. That's the Sprinter vans, the vehicles, the e-bikes. We also have an internal goal of being plastic-free by 2025. And then we also have reusable totes in our delivery that get about 100 deliveries per tote. And so trying to drive the reduction of cardboard and waste throughout the whole value that we provide to customers.
As a father to a 3-year-old, that is definitely something that is close to our hearts. And we actually have a dashboard which shows the number of CO2 emissions that you've reduced, primarily based on the whole optimization, the way we are able to pool orders together so that 2 trucks or two drivers do not really have to drive that way. So that is definitely something interesting, and we're seeing a lot of shippers and carriers actually care about it enough, like from EVs, electric vehicles, to all the other initiatives that they're instituting, like going plastic free. So that's definitely a good thing for all of us doing.
Wonderful. And I just want to thank our panel very much for all of your insight today. It's been a pleasure talking with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you.